Good morning and welcome to the NEOMETALS Limited investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd now like to hand you over to Christopher Reed, CEO. Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Alessandro, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for taking some time out of your day to listen to me present the NEOMETALS business to you. We are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, hence the overly large disclaimer. So NEOMETALS is an emerging sustainable battery materials producer headquartered in Perth, Western Australia. We've got three main business units that are focused on providing the materials needed for the EV and the energy storage, stationary energy storage transition. Today I'll concentrate on talking about the lithium-ion battery recycling project, quickly touch on our vanadium recovery project and our lithium chemicals business. In all of our businesses, they are underpinned by proprietary green processing technologies that we invented or co-invented. We've got 16 granted patents and 54 patents pending. These technologies are evidence of our commitment to the ESG principles. We recycle and recover feedstocks and extract the valuable materials out of them. It minimizes the reliance on and the need for constantly generating mines for feedstocks. That helps us essentially reduce our carbon footprint because there's no mine attached to a lot of our projects. We've got a very strong management team. We've got a good record of creating money and sharing it with our shareholders. We've returned more than $82 million in dividends, capital returns, and buybacks. And as we commercialize our technologies, our management team shifts on the continuous development and innovation of those technologies and the commercial success. So why am I presenting up in the Northern Hemisphere and why are we dual listed on the AIM? Well, Europe's sort of our center of operations. When you're producing green battery materials, the biggest markets outside of China are Europe and North America. They're emerging as the second and third biggest battery producing areas, and hence, our operations are headquartered in Hilchenbach, Germany, at the site of our partner SMS in Hilchenbach. We're also looking to put a plant into Kuppenheim, Germany, on a supply basis for Mercedes-Benz. We're also looking at putting our first plant into North America in a joint venture with Steel Company of Canada, or Stelco. We have our vanadium recovery project site up in Pori, Finland, and we're looking at developing a lithium hydroxide facility in Estoril, Portugal, with Portugal's largest chemical company, Bondelti. We've got one residual hard rock titanium and vanadium asset called Barrambie in Australia, and of course headquartered down under where all the people are. So, I think one of the consistent themes that you can take out of this slide is that, we have a very, very strong partnering element to our business. So we create our value in the test laboratory. We take the risk out of those processes as we take them up from bench scale to continuous pilot and demonstration plants. We build that value, and then what we try to do is to bring in very large multi-billion-dollar companies to commercialize those technologies and to develop them at scales that we couldn't develop ourselves. So, SMS Group we have in the battery recycling. I'll talk about that a bit more. Critical Metals is an unlisted company that we're the largest shareholder in the vanadium project. We have Mineral Resources in our lithium chemicals technology. They are a top 50 Australian company, about 15 billion market cap, and looking to develop that with Bondelti, who's part of the largest corporate conglomerate in Portugal. And what that's able to do is to really then bring in big partners. So we've got Mercedes-Benz, Itochu, Stelco in the battery recycling. In the vanadium recovery project, we have SSAB, a leading steel maker, and H2 Green Steel, which is an emerging green steel maker up in Scandinavia. So our experienced and growing team. So across the top, we've got the board there, majority non-executives, independent, coming from BHP, Rio, Alan's Arthur Robinson. So a lot of experience at the top. You know, the gatekeepers of the shareholders' money for the management team down below to execute our business plans. So we've got a summary of the sort of senior management there. In terms of the corporate dashboard, you know, we had about $80 million in cash and investments at the end of September last year. Our market cap's about 500 million Australian dollars, give or take. And we've got a pretty impressive TSR compared to our benchmark index. So sustainability, and, you know, on the front of the slide, you know, we're proud to be part of the green economy on the London Stock Exchange. So we were very pleased to meet the requirements for that. We also got our maiden MSCI ESG ratings at BBB, and that was based off the 2021 sustainability report. The 22 report was released in September, and hopefully we can get upgraded. You know, we were very pleased to win the AIM Awards for Best Technology in 2022. And we were particularly happy with becoming a finalist in the German National Sustainability Awards in 2022 for our battery recycling process. You know, we have a clear focus on producing very sustainable battery materials, you know, using essentially urban mining or, you know, stockpiles, end-of-life batteries, production scrap, stockpiles that are byproducts from steel making, whatever it is. You know, when you reduce the need to mine, you reduce the carbon footprint. In fact, in our vanadium project, you know, we're likely to have a negative carbon footprint, and those reports should be coming out in this quarter. So I'll focus on the lithium-ion battery recycling. This slide needs to be updated because the intellectual property is actually now owned 50-50 between NEOMETALS and SMS Group. We are commercializing that technology through a German incorporated special purpose vehicle called Primobius. So I should go back to our partners there, SMS Group. So SMS Group are a 150-year-old German plant builder. They've got 14,500 employees in 95 sites around the world. They've got production facilities in Europe, North America, India, and China. So they're capable, very, very capable plant builders. And essentially, you know, what we have is we have a battery recycling technology, and we're using our access to that technology and their plant building skills to become a recycler of choice. So, you know, why recycling? There's a number of demand drivers, you know, fire risk, they're not safe to store, to reduce greenhouse pollution. And that's a big, you know, that essentially that's what these graphs are that you see in front of you. You know, the electric car has twice the carbon footprint. And that's essentially because of the battery. And a large part of that comes from the fact that most of the battery materials and the original feedstocks have to be mined. You know, Australia, South Africa, South America. It's certainly the best way, the most certain way to reduce that carbon footprint of the battery production is to use hydromet recycling, which is the process that we've been working on for the last 6 years. So, there's a real opportunity for us to become a leading recycling solution for the OEMs to meet the proposed regulations, to create supply chains that are resilient, support the circular economy. And in the next slides, just to show you how much of a compelling market that we're targeting. So the European battery regulations, they've now been agreed, and hopefully they get to legislate them this year. Essentially, drive the recycling process to become hydromet, which is essentially just means we're using solutions rather than the existing incumbent pyrometallurgy, which is essentially melting the batteries and recovering mixed metals. What we try to do, and the process that we've got, is to extract all the materials individually. And so what we've got is, minimum recycling rates, declaring how much carbon is in each battery, the recycled content, and then increasing those, both the recovery rates, excuse me, and the recycled content to minimum levels. But essentially, just a fantastic tailwind for an already attractive market. And so, if we try to put, a ton of these EV batteries into an equivalent of what an ore body would look like in the ground, the ore would be 15% nickel, 15% copper, 2% cobalt, and 2% lithium. So very, very rich, and a multiple of what is currently mined. There's going to be forecast supply deficit for key recovered materials. And the best data that we can get indicate that recycling will take over from mined product for lithium, towards 2040. So essentially, what we've done is develop two sizes of plants. In the immediate term, there's a short-term requirement for capacity to meet volumes of production scrap, because typically when they make these batteries, there is a large amount of production scrap. We're trying to produce batteries in volumes that we've never ever made before. So what we did is design the plants off a typical gigafactory. So at a 10% steady scrap rate, which we think they can achieve over a couple of years, would need a plant that's capable of processing around 20,000 tonnes per annum, or 50 tonnes a day. We have that project at what we would call the feasibility study level, and finishing those studies this half, and developing and have at a pre-feasibility level a larger 500 tonne a day, or 200,000 tonne per annum plant, and that's designed to accept the 90% of cells that make it out of the gigafactory into a car at the end of life. So we developed, a hub and spoke solution. If we have a look at our flow sheet, we have divided it into essentially two halves. In our spoke, what we have is a pre-processing step where we discharge and dismantle the modules from the cars. So they're very, very large, made up of individual cells. We then put them through a shredder, which is essentially like a big crushing machine. So we've got a couple of stages of that. And we physically take out the plastics, the steel casings, and the metal foils, the copper and aluminium. We then take the black mass that comes out at the end, and we put that into a sulfuric acid solution. We use a combination of solvent extraction and precipitation to recover the individual base metal the battery materials. So predominantly base metals, nickel, cobalt, manganese. We recover lithium, and then we physically recover the graphite or carbon. So what this does is enables us, obviously, to reduce the CO2 footprint of the new materials that we use in the production of new batteries. Very, very high recoveries, scalable, and a fantastic customer pipeline. will tell you a bit more. So, you know, we obviously received the recognition from the German government by making the finals of the German National Sustainability Award for that green process. So I think you can take that it's a pretty good process. I think what makes the business really good is that we have flexible business models to meet our customers' needs. So at the moment, we have an operation where we act as principal. So we provide a recycling service to German cell makers and OEMs. Essentially, they pay us to dispose of the battery. We get 100% of the value of the materials that we sell, and we also get a gate fee for that. But we've got a real eye on increasing our volumes, right? Because we've got a plant builder as a partner. We never saw that the amount of feed was going to be, you know, a key to success. It's actually who can build the plants at the time, in the locations, and at the scale needed. So with that in mind, you know, we are trying to leverage our ownership of the technology to build recycling plants with partners who have access to larger volumes, and we're prepared to share the economic returns. And then to deliver the lowest total cost of ownership to the car makers who have now become who will become our biggest primary customer, we have to look at plant supply and licensing, and so we would provide them the plants on all the equipment for them, and we would get a technology licensing fee, and that will deliver them the lowest total cost of recycling over time. So, you know, what we have at the moment is a 10 tonne a day spoke producing black mass, which we sell. That's operational in Hilchenbach, Germany. This quarter, we're looking to receive a purchase order from Mercedes for a 10 tonne shredding plant. That'll be followed by a 10 tonne refining hub. For that, we'll do that under a plant supply and a royalty-free license for 10 tonnes a day, which is much smaller than our main plant, which is the 50 tonne a day. We're looking to build one of those with Stelco up at their Hamilton works just outside of Toronto. At this stage, we've given them a license, and we have an option to buy into 50% of that business. And then we've been looking at building a bigger plant in Germany after that. And the scale-up opportunity, you know, you can see there, you know, there's not too many businesses that are going to achieve growth like that over the next 20 years. So our Hilchenbach spoke is all about establishing market share in Europe and then expanding by building a bigger plant in Germany later to capture the market. I mean, you know, in terms of Europe, obviously a leading EV maker outside of China, great penetration rates, and there is the world's second largest source of batteries actually in the country already, because it's been importing them for the last couple of years as it builds out its own cell making capacity. And the graph on the right is just highlighting that sort of by 2030, we're expecting there to be 600 billion euros worth of recoverable material in batteries. That's just a fantastic opportunity, and hence why we started in Europe. So this is what the plant looks like that you can see there, which is this is on the left here. What we've got is that's SMS's production facilities in Hilchenbach in Germany, their sort of ancestral home. Then we've got a storage container for the used batteries, and that's the sort of batteries inwards. We then process them. You can see we've got some Mercedes-Benz cells in the bottom left there. They're going into the shredder. And then the black mass we're currently selling. And on the other side, we've got the hydromet refinery. Now, this is at demonstration scale, so this is not commercial. But what it allows us to do is it allows different cell makers and car makers to bring their batteries, to witness them being shredded, to witness us processing them as part of their due diligence. Now, I'd just like to play you a little promotional clip that Mercedes-Benz did. I'll Thanks, Alessandro. So yeah, look, we were very pleased, obviously, to be selected as a technology provider for Mercedes-Benz. You know, our view is that you know, we were very, very happy to be supplying them with a 10-ton a day recycling plant and entering into a 5-year R&D collaboration to test the latest and greatest cells and formats with Mercedes, and to demonstrate that our process is the best, with a view at trying to capture some of this cell production that they're doing. You know, they're going to ramp up by 2030. They're going to be producing about 200 gigawatt hours of cells. So if you use a 10-year life, then you're looking at them growing to needing about 900,000 tons per annum of battery recycling, which would be the equivalent of 50 of our smaller 50-ton a day plants, or 500-ton a day plants. So we look forward to working with Mercedes-Benz over the coming 5 years. Our partnership with Stelco, essentially Stelco is a steel producer in North America. They produce steel predominantly that goes into the car making OEMs in North America. They want to get their hands on more steel scrap to make more sustainable green steel. To do that, they'd like to get the end-of-life vehicles back off the OEMs to recycle and get the steel scrap. But, you know, as there's more and more EVs, what do they do with them? So SMS, Stelco is a client of SMS, and so the SMS guys put them in contact with Primobius. What we've done is we've licensed Stelco the technology in North America for end-of-life cars, with the exception of the German car makers that we already provide services to. And then we have a right to buy in between 25 and 50% equity in the recycling joint venture for a nominal amount. The third string in the bow is to build a greenfields integrated refinery into Germany. That's essentially to scale up, because Germany is going to become one of the largest lithium battery production hubs, and is clearly the largest EV producer in Europe. So, you know, you have a number of gigafactories being built, and you've got a lot of the car makers. So we had a look at putting a hub and spoke plant in at Kaiserslautern in Western Germany. So robust economics across all the key battery chemistries. Like I said, the spoke, essentially you sell black masses and intermediate. Obviously the big game is to put the hub in there and to capture higher recoveries and to recover and the lithium values in the batteries. The hub engineering cost study, which is outstanding, is expected in the second quarter of 2023. So in terms of the timeline for the business this year, you know, it's going to be pretty busy. We've got spoke plant supply agreement targeted for March quarter, the cost study for the hub in Germany in the June quarter, the hub plant supply agreement for Mercedes in the June quarter, and the spoke plant agreement for the larger plant with Stelco in the June quarter. So watch this space. So I think, as a business, we are uniquely positioned amongst our peers, and there's not that many peers in the lithium battery recycling world. An early mover advantage. We started 2016, 17 in the field of battery recycling and moved into the EVs in 2017, 2018. It is an environmentally friendly solution. You can trust the German government that's verified that. It's a robust technology. We can put in lots of different formats and chemistries. We've got very flexible business models that have attracted, some really large brand names. We're backed by a fantastic partner in SMS who can build plants of whatever size, scale, and location and time is needed, and underpinned by very, very robust economics. So, look, I think if I had to leave you with anything, NEOMETALS got a fantastic management team, a fantastic balance sheet. We've returned $82 million to the shareholders over the last 6 years. We've got a growing portfolio of ESG aligned battery materials businesses that are spawning more and more projects, like a technology tree. Our proprietary technologies are all low cost, low carbon. We've got a clear strategy and a consistent strategy to commercialize those in a partnering model to reduce risk and to speed the achievement of critical mass and cash flows. And I think we have a fantastic organic growth potential through assets that we've created internally. So thank you very much for your attention today. First presentation of the year, so apologies if I'm a little rusty. They'll get better. Thank you very much.
Chris, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just using the Q&A tab, which is situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few minutes to review the questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. As you can see, we received a number of questions throughout today's presentation. And Chris and Jeremy, if I could just ask you to read out those questions and give responses where it's appropriate to do so, I'll pick up from you both at the end.
Yeah, look, I might take the opportunity to introduce myself, which we skipped at the beginning. So Jeremy McManus, GM, Commercial and Investor Relations for NEOMETALS. And just seeing some questions pop up here. So first cab off the rank, which may have already been addressed. I think it probably has. What key milestones should we look for in the short term? Chris spoke to one of those slides right there that had the key catalysts for the battery recycling. And Chris, I don't know if you want to touch on anything else with regards the other two business units in the near term.
Yeah, look, I think from the other businesses for the vanadium recovery project, we're looking to get larger offtake from SSAB, going from 2 million tonnes to 3 million tonnes, to putting out our feasibility study and making an FID around mid-year. In terms of the lithium chemicals business, we're looking to run a pilot plant this year, and to build a demonstration plant. The demonstration plant will run in 2024.
The second question here, can you comment also on risks to the business? What keeps you up at night?
Well, that's the second one from Sam. What keeps me up at night? I think certainly the weakness in the market and the stock price. I mean, we're an ASX 300, top 300 company. We have our share price is halved, despite the fact that, over the last sort of 6 or 7 months, I mean, we're no stranger there. We all know that the markets have been bad. But yeah, I always worry, sometimes things get too cheap. Like, what would it cost some of our customers or some of our competitors in time and money to try to replicate a portfolio like we have?
So there's a third question here, which I might have a stab at. When talking about Stelco, you referenced other German car manufacturers, plural. is there likely to be any announcements on other partners soon? So, I think we
Yeah,
have to be, we've got to be a little bit careful about answering that. But Chris, I'll let you
absolutely.
continue. But talking to a lot of different players for sure.
Yeah, look, at Hilchenbach in Germany, we find ourselves processing batteries that have arisen from all the German car makers through their waste handlers, what have you. So in defining the license jurisdiction and the scope for the Stelco, what we did is we decided to remove to carve out the ability for us to extend our current operations to cover the German car makers. Obviously, SMS is a German company, been around for 150 years and has deep connections into the automotive industry. In terms of, look, as it's appropriate to, and we reach the commercial certainties, then we're compelled under continuous disclosure to make announcements, but not beforehand.
So we've got another one here. How do you accelerate partnerships? What's the plan?
Yeah, look, it's really by demonstrating the technology, putting out the studies. We have a very impressive pipeline that you can see. I think we've also had an MOU in the battery recycling with Itochu looking at putting a plant in Japan, and there's obviously a lot of other opportunities that essentially just wait till you're ready to put your metrics in terms of your financial metrics into the market. It's one of the only businesses where the ore bodies are growing every day. For us, it's about being product ready. So for some recyclers, they just want to do it all themselves and build their plants, but essentially what we're doing is those plants are our product, and we want to sell lots of plants, and SMS wants to build lots of plants and build them and install them all over the world. Now, what commercial basis that we get to do that? Some, the smaller ones, will do as principal, but our preferred business model is to get access to larger volumes in the future and to secure a large market share. So to do that, we will enter into joint ventures or plant supply and licensing agreements. So we've got the business models ready, and it's about reaching that product readiness. Now, once we're ready to contract with Mercedes for the 10-ton plants, we're open for business. Once we're ready with Stelco, we're open business, because you can do them as a cookie cutter design. You just want to build more and more plants.
Chris, we've got one here. Can you comment on LFP chemistry type batteries and their recycling, i.e. the economics and or other relevant chemistries?
Sure. So LFP, at the moment, you would get significant gate fees to dispose of LFP batteries, because I don't think anyone's really got that economic a process to individually split out and recycle and recover all the elements individually. There probably is some hope of producing a mixed lithium iron phosphate sort of chemical at the back end. It hasn't been terribly interesting to date, but obviously at these lithium prices, that we can adapt our plant to take LFP.
Yeah. So is Primobius also targeting Korean and Japanese EV battery makers and auto manufacturers?
Yes.
All right. In this emerging EV materials recycling sector, how active and prepared is NEOMETALS from IT attacks on its IP technologies? So I guess that's a cyber security.
Absolutely. I've got to say, it's not my personal area of expertise, but certainly the CFO we do have an internal process for NEOMETALS, and so does Primobius through SMS's. As a German plant builder and someone who has a lot of patents and a lot of IP in building plants, the Primobius servers are hosted according to SMS's IT systems. So I must admit I don't get overly concerned about that, but I can certainly bring it up.
So another question, who are your main competitors and are you the lowest cost provider?
So main competitors, look, I guess if you have a look at similar sort of processes, Lysical, Redwood Materials, there's, that's on the hydromet, obviously the big pyromet. You have, we've got Sungeel, Glencore, Umicore, those sorts of companies in Europe. Are we the lowest cost provider? Well, we're not lower cost than pyrometallurgists because that's a lower cost process, but they get much lower recoveries because they incinerate quite a lot. In terms of the costs, we will be putting out our benchmark costs sort of mid-year. We believe that they are competitive. I think, the flexible business models that we have will deliver the total lowest cost of recycling for the OEMs in the future.
And then we've got another one here. Are you able to further comment on Barrambie progress and in the year ahead?
And the year ahead, no dramas. So Barrambie, look, the guys are working very hard. Obviously, we've got to move from the pre-feasibility to the feasibility. The guys have been doing the variability test work to kick that off, working on the necessary approvals. Obviously, we've designed a new plant to do a low temperature roast and ilmenite separation at I think we'd earmark that down to go down to Tanindua, which is sort of on the way to Geraldton. So that needs obviously a bit more study and some permitting. The ilmenite prices are still very, very strong, north of $400 a tonne. Look, I mean, the next, I don't think we've got any continuous disclosure on Barrambie. The next reporting will be the periodic, so the quarterly that's due at the end of January.
Chris, Jeremy, thank you for that. I think you've actually managed to address all those questions from investors. And of course, the company will review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to the company, Chris, could I just ask you for a few closing comments?
Yeah. Oh, look, last question. Is Bundelti just a proof of concept for processing? We're looking to use it commercially. No, we're looking to use it commercially, but the pilot will be proof of scale, and same with the demonstration plant. Will actually use that to prove out different feedstocks. A couple of closing comments. Look, I appreciate everyone taking their time to have a look at NEOMETALS. Greener battery materials are the three words I want you to take away when you think of NEOMETALS. We're producing all the battery materials for EV and ESS in the greenest possible way. So thank you very much for your attention, and Happy New Year, and I wish you all the best.
Chris, Jeremy, thanks once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of NEOMETALS Limited, we'd like to thank you for today's presentation, and good morning to you all.